I want to know, and I think people watching want to know, what is the actual function of the Minneapolis Public School Board? What can it do and what can't it do?
So the mission of the school board is to oversee the district and to basically supervise the superintendent. It's a way for the community to have a voice in holding the school district accountable.
Got it.
And
who is the school district? Is that?
So the school district, it's the Minneapolis Public Schools. It doesn't include charter schools. It doesn't include private schools. These are public schools in Minneapolis.
Got it.
It's citywide.
Yeah.
I'm running for the citywide board position, the at-large position.
Uh-huh.
And it's really to oversee and to hold the district and the superintendent accountable. So part of that is around the mission. Is the school district educating students?
Yeah.
Are we satisfied with that? How can it be improved? How can the board help facilitate that?
Uh-huh.
And then the other part is managing and overseeing the budget and making sure the district is being run in a fiscally responsible way. Which basically means, is the district managing its money, which is really the public's money, in a way that is the best use of those resources?
That's taxpayer money?
It's taxpayer money coming from state, local, and federal government.
Uh-huh.
And how are those funds being managed? And part of what got us here today is the district rolled out the CDD and the need to reshuffle students in an effort to address the district losing money by busing students. But they haven't given us the foundational numbers that how much does it really cost to bus all these students? And it doesn't give us the number to use to see how is this current new district reshuffle going to work? Is it really going to save money? Because without that first number, the foundation of what the cost really is, we can't know. And we won't know if the budget that we've been given is accurate or not. And it becomes really frustrating when each student receives a certain amount of public funds for their education, and that school district uses that money to help educate everyone in the district.
Yeah.
And what happens with that is the district has lost over 40,000 students in the last 10 years to charter schools and suburban schools. And we still don't have the district doesn't have a good handle. They've never really researched to find out why. Now, if we go into the community, people will say, well, students didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe sending my kid to school.
Mm-hmm.
My kid was ignored. And this is coming from a lot of BIPOC communities. We had a massive Hmong exodus of students on the north side.
Wow.
Because they didn't feel safe.
Where'd they go?
They went to primarily suburban schools and to charter schools.
Okay.
And they're still living in Minneapolis, but now we're busing them into the suburbs or to the charter schools and paying for that. Likewise, a lot of Latino students felt ignored.
Yeah.
And so they started leaving.
Yeah.
And there are issues of safety as well. And then we look at African American communities, and it's like these continual issues keep popping up. But the district hasn't really dived into that to say, why are the students really leaving? Why have families sending them someplace else? And what would we need to do to get them back? And this school reshuffling through the comprehensive district design, by the district's own admission, we're going to lose hundreds of students. And when other people look at it, it's really projected to be in the thousands. They projected losing 300 students a year when they roll out this plan. And using that figure, knowing that they're going to lose students, they should be losing budgets for those students as well, so they should have less money. But a recent budget showed an increase in revenue coming from students.
Yeah.
And one board member asked a direct question about that, and he was never given an answer. And he asked it several times in board meetings, and the district would not give him the proper answer. So there's no way the board can do its oversight. And that's just really unacceptable. That's one of the main reasons you have a board, to make sure that the budget is really handled the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so it becomes really frustrating because we don't have baseline numbers to know, to help us and to help other people determine is what the district telling us accurate or not.
Mm-hmm.
And from what all the budgets they've rolled out, it hasn't. And it becomes even more frustrating because during one 3-week period, we had 5 different budgets presented.
Yeah.
And
I remember you talking about this. You said there was like there's a $10 million shift or something like that?
Yeah, there was a $10 million change.
What?
And it's,
that's so much money.
And it's become hundreds of millions of dollars now because we kept asking for what's the sort of doing due diligence and managing, what's it going to look like next year? What's it going to look like in 5 years and 10 years? And the district finally rolled out the numbers for the plans for a 5-year and 10-year plan, which is basic to any new strategic plan.
Yeah.
And they were $200 million more dollars.
What?
In the hole.
Who's in charge of like the Excel spreadsheet on this? Like, and I'm not like trying to be sarcastic or flippant, but that is like such a large margin. Like,
it's huge.
Who's in charge of that?
And
we don't want to name names, but the board's in charge.
The board's in charge of it. And then the district itself is in charge of it because which office is rolling out these budgets, and that's the essential future budget of the district.
Oh my goodness!
It's not the current budget; it's the future budget.
Yeah.
And when board members were asking, why is this happening?
Yeah.
No reason was given. And it's really frustrating. And so we have a new rollout of the budget, and it shows that, it's going to cost less to renovate these buildings than we thought, because what's happened is we're going to have middle schools that are going to have to educate. They're going to be repurposed to educate elementary school kids who are a lot smaller.
Yeah.
We're going to have other buildings repurposed for high school students, and we're going to create a middle school that's larger than almost any high school in the district.
That's what I heard. They're going to bloat Anderson up to like 1,500 kids. It's like,
it's going to be huge. And
can the building does it have the capacity for 1,500 kids?
That's debatable. But I also, because I've worked construction, I've worked farming, and I have an idea like how much it costs for building renovations.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen who gave the quote for what the building renovations were going to be across the district. I can't find that anywhere on the website. Did they do it in-house? And I find it really doubtful.
Yeah.
Because the district plan and the way the district's been operating,
yeah,
they haven't consulted with teachers or the teachers union about, is this really going to help us address our equity opportunity gap? They haven't, as far as I know, talked with their own maintenance staff on, is this an accurate figure for repurposing buildings? And they haven't talked with communities about how do you feel about us changing what's going to happen to your local schools. The north side wants more immersion programs for students to learn another language and for the students they have to learn with that language, to learn English better. But it's not happening in north. And the immersion programs we have are going to be drastically changed. A lot of the immigrant students who are going to these, children of immigrants who are going to these schools, won't be able to go to them in the future. More seats will need to be available for a different population group in the city. And part of what we've been told is this will help us demographically and geographically with equity and repurposing everything. But what's happened when we look at who's moving, the district has sort of put out there that it's going to be southwestern schools and white families, but when we look at the geographic distribution, it's the South Central Corridor, which is almost primarily BIPOC students, and it's Minneapolis North, which is primarily African American, and then a little bit of Latino and Hmong in there, and they're the ones who are going to have to move around the most. And
so these immersion schools are going towards Southwest Minneapolis.
They're actually going to go into Northeast. One's going to go into Northeast.
Northeast,
So we're looking at it's not in North.
Yeah.
And one thing that's come crystal clear through all the community meetings, Carrie Jo, the principal in North, Carrie Jo, who's on the board, and the principal in North, they met in their community and say, what is it that you want? And immersion education came through really loud and clear, as well as K-8 education, but all the K-8 schools are going to be decreased. And one of the things I know from my own equity work in higher education is that every time a student moves to a different school or building, you're going to lose students. They're just not going to come back.
And you got a lot of families that are moving to these neighborhoods just for their kid to go to the K through 8. Like that. And now if you cut that K through 8 in half, my kid's got to go to K through 5 and then 6 through 8 somewhere else. It breaks up that community.
It breaks up the community. We're right here You know, in the Cedar Riverside Towers area, this has been
where I
the
grew
hub
up.
of the immigrant refugee entry into Minneapolis. And one of the things that's come really crystal clear through immigrant and refugee families is they want K-8 schools so that they can keep their children together longer. So older siblings can help younger siblings transition and do well and be protected, and they can all look out for each other and support one another. And we're losing that. And that's something that when we look at all the students who are immigrant and refugee, or how many students like on the north side who are African American who want a K-8 for that longer period altogether, they've been ignored. I mean, they're not being listened to, and it's really frustrating. And it also comes back to what are we doing and what could we do to really decrease the opportunity gap? And families feeling like they're sending their kids to a school that they're really happy to and that they can keep them together, the children, that helps create community. It helps engage students, it helps engage their families, it engages their relatives so that their relatives now want to go to that school. And that's really huge to really sustaining a student population. And right now we're losing students.
Well, and from just conducting the forums on the CDD, it seemed like that was a huge factor, or something that was happening that I wasn't privy to. Because when I was hired as a paraprofessional, when I get hired as a paraprofessional, I'm just one-on-one, and I don't usually go outside the scope of, working with the student scenario and whatnot. But to know that students are leaving the district not because there's better opportunities somewhere else, but because they're being underserved in their own community, that's alarming to me. And it's also something that is very intentional. It sounds like that as well, because if this system has failed students of color for this long, at the nation's like in topping the nation for this, that becomes intentional at a certain point. You can't say, oh, we didn't know any better. You can't say, oh, well, this is the way it shook out, and we're really trying hard here. The excuses just kind of run out. So